studying the life of David, and last week we left off with David sending greetings to the son of the deceased king Hanun, and now Hanun's son, who's now king, his name is King Nahash, and Nahash means shining serpent. Okay, so look these names up, because these names oftentimes will give you great clues to things. And you remember last week how he humiliated David's ambassadors by cutting their robes off to the middle of their buttocks, and then they cut half of their beards off and they sent them back to David. So basically this was a declaration of war. Okay, and so now David, he literally, truly meant good tidings when he sent these ambassadors to Nahash, and because the Bible says that Nahash's father had shown kindness to David. But now Nahash did a terrible thing in returning David's kindness with this most severe rebuke. So let's continue. We're going to pick up in our story in 2 Samuel chapter 10, verse 6. 2 Samuel chapter 10, verse 6. And it says, "And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob and the Syrians of Zobah 20,000 footmen, and of King Maacah 1,000 men, and of Ishtab 12,000 men." Well, first of all, this is an interesting choice of words right here, but it's really packed full of a lot of meaning. And as I've told you, 1 Chronicles parallels 2 Samuel. Okay, so in 1 Chronicles 19:6, and I don't have that on the board, so if you want to look it up, you can. It's also an account of this same verse, and I'm just going to read it to you. It says, "And when the children of Ammon saw that they had made themselves odious." So here it uses odious, where in 2 Samuel uses stank. So, "And when the children of Ammon saw that they had made themselves odious to David, Hanun and the children of Ammon sent 1,000 talents of silver to hire them chariots and horsemen out of Mesopotamia and out of Syria, Maacah, and out of Zobah." Okay, so basically they realized they had blown it. Okay, and they realized that they were detestable and abhorrent to David. And so both expressions convey the same idea, right? That you're odious, or that they stank, realize that they stank to David. So the Ammonites had deeply offended David. And so this is costing them a fortune, because their army wasn't large enough to fight David. And so they had to go get more men, more
To get friends.
what?
They had to get friends.
Yeah, they had to get friends friends with money, friends with men, friends with chariots and horse and all that. And so they realized that they had made themselves detestable, and so let's look at verse 7. "And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men." All right, so when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David, in other words, they realized that they had really messed up. And what it made me think of was this latest deal with Iran. And you could say that they blew it with Trump, right? And they know that they poked the bear, or they poked the lion. Okay, because Netanyahu said they poked the lion. So David sent a large army under the command of Joab, and is this not what Donald Trump did? Mm-hmm. And so he tried diplomacy. He tried to work with them. He tried to be nice to them, and that didn't work. And so what are you left with when nothing else works?
The red button.
The red button, strength. Mm-hmm. And all right, so let's look at verse 8. "And the children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entering in of the gate, and the Syrians of Zobah and of Rehob and Ishtab and Maacah were by themselves in the field." All right, so the Ammonites here are positioning themselves at the entrance of their own city gate. Okay, they're preparing for battle, and they're right in front of their own city gate to protect their own city. So this was a strategic military move, right? That they're defending their territory while keeping close to the city to protect it. Meanwhile, they stationed their allies, the Armenians from Zobah, Rehob, Ishtab, and Makkah. They were stationed separately in an open field. And of course, they're out there to add further defense to the city. And so I read that this was a classic ancient military setup. One force guarding the stronghold and the other ready to engage in open combat. All right, so let's see what Joab does in verse 9. So when Joab saw that the front of the battle was against him, before and behind, he chose all of the choice men of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians. All right, so here we go, other nations, making that parallel with Israel. Other nations have always hated Israel, right? And they've always come out to fight with Ammon against Israel. Is that not what we're seeing today? All these nations lining up to fight against Israel. And listen, you're either for God or you're against him. And this is why God hates lukewarmness. And how can you be for God and be for the devil? You can't. You have to choose sides. And so I can see just in this battle analogy how God hates lukewarmness. And you can't be for Iran and Russia and be for Israel. It's got to be one or the other. And because they're arch enemies. And you can't be for God and live like the devil. It just doesn't work. And so you got to choose sides. But looking at the lineup of this battle, see, Joab is very well aware of the enemy's position against them. So he saw the enemy had surrounded him, and he saw the Syrians in the open field. He saw the Ammonites at the city gate. All right, let's look at verse 10. And the rest of the people he delivered into the hand of Abishai his brother, that he might put them in array against the children of Ammon. All right, so you may remember Joab's brother that we learned about in 1 Samuel. So he's going to head up one of the two armies, okay? And there's two armies of the Ammonites and the Syrians, and they're all drawn up facing one another. And the Ammonites are supported by the city of Rabbah behind them. And then the Syrians in great force with numerous chariots, they're able to maneuver the plain in front of Medeba. And Joab is advanced against them as well, and they would have the rear. Okay, so for you military people, you can kind of get this in your mind how they're all strategically placed. So then what Joab did was he divided his forces, and he took the best of his troops to face the Syrians, and then he gave the rest of his troops to his brother. It's pronounced Abishai, to confront the Ammonites. All right, in verse 11. And he said, if the Syrians be too strong for me, then thou shalt help me. But if the children of Ammon be too strong for thee, then I will come and help thee. All right, so Joab is talking to his brother Abishai and told him, if the Syrians are too strong for me, you help me. If the Ammonites are too strong for you, I'll help you. All right, so let's look at verse 12. Be of good courage, and let us play the men for our people and for the cities of our God, and let the Lord do that which seemeth him good. And I think he's talking to his brother here.
Yeah.
But what he's saying is, be of good courage and let us play the men. So literally he's saying, be strong and let us strengthen ourselves. And then the same phrase, I looked it up in Chronicles, and it says, be of good courage and let us behave ourselves valiantly. So what he's telling his brother is to be courageous. Let's fight. And then he says, may the Lord do what seems good to him. So Matthew Henry, the old commentator, he said this. He said, they are at war with the Son of David. Not only give the protection, but begin the war. God had forces to send against those that set his wrath at defiance. Isaiah 5:19. Which will convince them that none ever hardened his heart against God and prospered. None has ever hardened their heart against God and prospered. We should write that down, put it on the refrigerator. And like I said before, I've lived long enough to see that this plays out. Just think of somebody that's not living right, that doesn't want anything to do with God. You can just mark your calendar, look at your watch, give it 10 years, it may be 20 years, but their life will never prosper. You cannot prosper apart from God. And he goes on and he says, Christ's soldiers should strengthen one another's hands in their spiritual warfare. Let nothing be wanting in us, whatever the success be. When we make conscience of doing our duty, we may with satisfaction leave the event with God, assuredly hoping for his salvation in his own way and time. In other words, what he's saying is, if you go after God, you're going to prosper. Your soul is going to prosper. If you do what God says about money, your pocketbook is going to prosper. You cannot follow God and not prosper. Now, does that mean the devil's not going to attack you? Does that mean that, no, you're still going to be attacked. You're still going to be in this battle, but you will prevail and you will win. And that's what he's saying. So no one has ever won fighting against God and his people, and no one ever will. Did Hitler win? Did the Shah of Iran win? No, nobody had ever come up against Israel and won. Won. Now, we know they did in the Old Testament, right, because God allowed it because of their sin. But they're winning now because God, he says that is his land. Those are his people. And we are adopted in. All right, so let's look at verse 13. And Joab drew nigh, and the people that were with him unto the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. So the Syrians fled before Joab's forces. It doesn't even say they fought. It just says they drew near and they fled. So I don't know whether they fought or not.
They were just hired guns.
Exactly.
They didn't really have any
Skin in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So seeing this, then the Syrians fled. So then guess what happened? Then the Ammonites fled. All right, and then Abishai had retreated into their city. All right, so then Joab returned to Jerusalem, having neutralized the threat without a full-scale siege. So we really don't know how much they fought, if any. But bottom line is, Joab said, God's will be done. Let's see what God does. So I was thinking about this, and I thought, you know what? We are in a battle. Every day you are in a battle. And boy, did Jeff and I know it. Our whole lives have been a battle. And we have to understand, and if you can get this in your head, this battle belongs to the Lord. That's what Joab was telling his brother. Be valiant, be courageous, because this battle belongs to the Lord. See, I tried for years to fight our battle myself. I didn't understand that this battle that was raging against us was the Lord's battle. And so here the attack was begun. And see, the attack wasn't against both parties at one time, right? They threw all their weight into the Syrians, right? Then they threw all their weight into the Ammonites, and what happened? The enemy fled. So Joab's tactics were completely successful. As will your tactics be successful if you trust God that this is his battle. And that he will guide you, he will lead you, and you be led by the Spirit, and David just reminded me this morning about a peace or lack of. You know, you may not get a word from the God, but guess what? You go by peace or lack of. If you don't have any peace, don't go forward. Okay? Sometimes he'll give you a word. Sometimes it's just literally, I have no peace, or I have peace, and that's your God. And I just love it when Joab said, you know, be of good courage, and may the Lord do what seems good to him. So in essence, Joab was saying, Lord, you've got to fix this. That's what he was saying. And so when we realize that only God can fix it, you know, that's when people start coming to the Lord, when they're down at the bottom. They're in the pit, they're at the bottom, there's no way up, there's no rope, there's no ladder, and they realize that only God can fix this. That's usually when people start coming to the Lord.
It makes me think of Israel and all the battles that they fought and that they shouldn't have won. And I heard something recently, like even this last one, when they went against Iran, that they thought, all of Israel knew the death toll was going to be high, that was going to come against them, and it didn't happen. And the death toll was so low, and it said that people are coming to the Lord, the Jews are, some of them, because they knew that that was God's hand that had saved lives there in Israel from this battle. And I thought that was interesting, because we don't know that's going on, right? Because our news doesn't tell us. But
Amen. So I promise you, things will get better. If you just say, Lord, you've got to fix this, and you truly look to him to fix it, things will get better.
I like the part where he told his brother, and then I will come and help thee. We all need help sometimes.
Absolutely.
And from each other.
Yes, we need help from each
prayers and
other.
lifting up, because we all go through battles.
Exactly. Listen, I mean, I could write a book on just the battles we've been through, you know. But guess what? And I've been able to come to this church and cry and say, I need help.
Yeah.
And that means a lot, because I've been in churches where I couldn't do that, because they would have judged me like you wouldn't believe. But I need a safe place where I can come and say, I need help.
yeah.
I'm struggling. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the place, and we are family.
Amen.
And you need to be able to go to any one of us and say, please pray for me, I need help, and be able to get an encouraging word. Because guess what? We're all attacked.
Mhm.
Something's going to happen in every one of our lives that's going to challenge us. And we need somebody to come along beside us and say, you know what, I'm gonna hold you up while you're down. I'm gonna pick you up.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, let's look at verse 14. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fled, then they fled also before Abishai and entered into the city. So Joab returned from the children of Ammon and came to Jerusalem. So this is just amazing that they won this seemingly effortless victory. And again, is that not how God works? Once you take your hands off of it, he will do amazing things, and he will give you an effortless victory. Because listen, he's not going to share the glory with you. He wants to get the glory from you and on your behalf. And so he didn't have to lay siege to the city, and the season of the year, they said, was for winter, had been drawing near. So it was fall. It was getting close to winter. And in 2 Samuel 11:1, it says, he came to Jerusalem in triumph to report to David the victory that he obtained. And so I think this young, brand new king learned a big lesson. What do you think? And he wasted a whole lot of money. All right? And so I hope he could see, and of course the Bible doesn't tell us, but I hope he learned a big lesson and learned who the God of Israel was. And men who are motivated by the enemy, though, never learn. And they just continue in their sin against the Lord. But see, the Lord will always show out and show off and to bring his glory to every situation, just like we see him doing in Israel. I'm telling you, we live in an exciting time. You better follow Israel if you're not. And a great way to follow him is to follow Israel is on Amir Sephardi. And I can't tell you how to spell that. I'll have to give it to you afterwards. But I follow him on Telegram. And he just gives you up-to-date, I mean, literally, like minute by minute stuff in the government and the war and everything. It's really so much, there's no, you couldn't follow every single post because it's just all day long, every day. But he's a great way to follow what's going on. And it makes me excited because I know we're close. I mean, we are very close to getting out of here. All right, let's look at 15. And when the Syrians saw that they were smitten before Israel, they gathered themselves to get together. All right, well, the Syrians are afraid, right? And so they've gathered themselves together, and we see the very same thing going on today. Iran never works alone. They have proxies, right, all around. And we know that from Ezekiel 38:39, we know that Russia is going to team up. And they're going to team up with Iran, and they're going to come down because the Bible says that God's going to pull them down with a hook in their jaw. That's what Ezekiel 38 and 39 says. And that they're going to come down to Israel for the booty. Well, to me, this makes perfect sense that we're right on the verge of that because Russia is hurting, evidently, financially because of this war with Ukraine. All right, so they're going to come down. God's going to draw them down with a hook in their jaw, metaphorically, to attack Israel for the booty. And notice how everybody's talking about this minerals, these mineral deals. You know, so Israel has rare minerals. They got oil and stuff, and so whatever's in Israel, Russia's going to come down to get it. And then we know from the Bible that God is going to drop 700-pound hailstones on their heads. Because guess what? Israel's not strong enough to defeat Russia. Okay, so they would wipe them out. But God is going to show up and he's going to show off. Man, I want him to show up and show off in my life. Do you want him to show up and show off in your life? Then how do you get him to do that? How? How do you get him to do that?
Just surrender to him.
Surrender to him. Just like Joab. Lord, this is your battle. You got to fix this. That's my surrender prayer. Lord, you got to fix this.
Well, Lee, I have to say, like, it makes me think of my dad's life. You know, I was trying as a believer, like, I should be able to do this, right? I should be able to love him and be good to him and not get anxious and not get overwhelmed. And I just kept going, I should be able to do this. And I couldn't. And then one day, I just surrendered it. I don't know why that day. I just was tired of looking, maybe feeling foolish or looking not like a mature Christian, not feeling like I was handling it like a mature Christian. And I just thought, I don't know, Lord, I just can't do it. He pushes all my buttons. And I surrendered it, and that day, it changed everything.
So let's talk about that. What is a mature Christian? Does that mean you're perfect?
No.
It means you're knowing the Lord and trusting him.
A mature Christian knows that you're defeated. Satan has defeated you the day you were born. And a mature Christian knows that that's why Jesus came, to save you and deliver you. And a mature Christian says, I can't do it, but you can.
Yeah. It's our flesh.
I'm telling you, we were sold a bill of goods
We were.
in the church.
Yeah.
Do you honestly think God cares whether you wear pants or a dress?
Nope.
Do you think he cares whether you wear your hair in a holy bun? No, what he cares about is that you surrender it all to him and know that you can't do it, but he can. So something else to notice here is that the enemy never quits. Just like I was telling you this morning in Tim's class, I watched that, I think it's called The Afterlife, on YouTube. It's a YouTube channel, and these people got way, like deep into New Age. It was their business. That's what they were doing for a living. And he said that after they had this horrible demonic manifestation, just horrific. He said he was scared to death. Okay, all this stuff appeared in their home, and this, they saw things, they experienced things. It was just horrible. He said, still today. He said, and they left Belize. They're from Canada. They went back to Canada because they had moved to Belize. They went back to Canada. He said, still to this day, they are still experiencing demonic attack, but not like they were. But see, the devil's never going to quit. He was on a roll yesterday. He's on a roll today. Because he's on a roll every day. Because why? Because Adam gave him the dominion of the earth. And so he's not going to stop. And you are not going to defeat him in your own flesh. There is nothing in any one of us that can defeat this enemy of God. And until you take your last breath, you are going to have battle after battle after battle. Now, that sounds depressing. Mm-hmm. But what did Joab say? Be courageous. Mm-hmm. Because God is on your side. Yeah. So you just have, when you finally get to a point like Barbara did, Lord, I can't do this. I should be able to do this as a Christian, but I can't do it. And then Barbara, I've been waiting on you. I've been waiting on you to figure out you can't do it. And then what does he do? Well, thank you, Barbara, for giving it to me, and I'm going to fix it for you. And man, did he fix it.
He did.
I watched that whole thing play out. I know the day that she surrendered it. And then I watched what happened after that. It was just nothing. It was nothing less than a pure, downright miracle. Yeah. What happened with her and her dad. So that enemy's going to be after you till your last breath, just like he's after Israel. But in that glorious name, we're going to win every battle. And I wrote a devotion yesterday, and I said all the enemy can do is accuse. See, he can't defeat you; he just can accuse you. Yeah. and we need to understand that, because there's one thing. See, you can't keep your focus on the battle. Because if you keep your focus on the battle, then you're just paying attention to Satan. And you got to be of good courage, like Joab said. And you got to know who is fighting on your side. Yes. So you got to start looking to the one that's fighting on your side. You've got to know for sure who is fighting for you and not against you. And you've got to know who you can call on, who you can call on to stand by you and fix this situation for you. And when I was writing that devotion, and when I was preparing this, I saw in my mind this. I always see this. The Lord just gave me this some years ago. This great pit, and I could just see the devil behind, pushing the person towards the pit. Accusation, 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 pushing you ever closer to the pit until your toes are right over the pit, right? Your toes are hanging over the abyss. And then I could just see Jesus standing in midair, right in the pit, standing on nothing in midair, and just holding the person from falling into the pit. And I heard someone told me recently how disappointed they were in many people who in this person's time of need, and how they felt let down, and this was nobody here, and how they felt that Christians had let them down. See, people are going to let you down. People may even push you into the pit. Christians may push you into the pit.
Well, they'll pray for you.
After they push you in, they'll pray for you. They'll pray for you to get out of the pit once they've pushed you in, right?
Right.
But see, we got to get our eyes off of people. And we got to get our eyes off of the battle. We got to get our eyes off of the problem and get our eyes onto Jesus, because he is the solution to the battle. He's the ladder to get you out of the pit if somebody pushed you in there. And I believe Joab literally had his eyes on God. And I believe he told his men to get their eyes off of the battle and onto God, from which cometh their help. And I've been watching closely all this stuff with Israel. And again, I've just been getting excited because prophecy is playing out before our eyes. Things that you know, my grandparents especially, my parents, you know, my mother was born in 1930, my father was born in 1929, and Israel didn't become a nation until 1948, you know, and of course they didn't know the Bible and they didn't talk about it. But I'm like, these people, even my parents couldn't have even imagined Israel becoming a nation again. Can you imagine our grandparents? You know, I mean, they read this stuff and they're like, huh? You know, these people, and after World War II, you think Israel's become a nation after World War II? And I mean, it's just amazing what's going on, and we need to pay close attention. But see, Jesus is the one that is causing all this prophecy to come about. And bottom line is, anybody who fights against Israel is going to fall, and they're going to fail, because you can't fight against God and win. And all you got to do is ask Iran. All right, let's look at verse 16. And Hadarezer sent and brought out the Syrians that were beyond the river. And they came to Helam, and Shobach, the captain of the host of Hadarezer, went before them. All right, so Hadarezer is the king of Zobah. And so when I looked up Zobah, it said this. It said this name is sometimes Zobah, called in the title of Psalms 60, Aram Zobah. It was a kingdom, the position of which cannot be exactly determined, but lying northeast of Israel and formerly governed by petty kings with whom Saul had wars in 1 Samuel 14:47. When or by what means it had become united under a single sovereign is unknown. But in 2 Samuel 8:4 and 2 Samuel 10:6, it is plain that he was a monarch of considerable power and controlled tribes beyond the Euphrates. So in other words, Israel had taken land, and the Ammonites had obtained the Syrians when their combined armies were defeated by David. So Hadarezer then attempted to summon this aid to aid his tribes beyond the river. And the river that they're talking about is the Euphrates River. But David cut his plans short by another crushing defeat, which reduced them all to subjection. So again, you just can't go against God and win. You just can't. All right, verse 17. And when it was told David, he gathered all of Israel together, and he passed over Jordan and came to Helam, and the Syrians set themselves in array against David and fought with him. Here we go. The battle just doesn't ever end. The devil is not going to give up until he is thrown into the bottomless pit. He is just going to keep coming at us. So you might as well get ready. And as I told somebody yesterday, I said, listen, you know what? When a battle happens, we need to learn from that battle. Because guess what? We're going to be attacked again. And if you don't learn from this battle, you're going to mess up in the next battle. So we need to say, okay, well, this is what happened. And rehearse it in your mind and think about it. And if you won the battle, especially, how did you win the battle? Think about this stuff. How am I going to battle this again when it happens again? Because the devil just is going to come and come and come and come and come. He's just never going to give up. So the devil never quits. But guess what? We can't be discouraged because we know God's on our side. And someone was telling me a remarkable story of their own life and what they went through and how they learned to overcome the most volatile situations in that name. That's what they told me. And they said they learned that they could cast out demons, and they learned that they could see people delivered in that name. And they learned that when the attack came, they could literally take authority in that name and see demons flee. See, that they learned that from the battle. So what does God say? He promises to turn every bad thing into a good thing. And I think that's something. So if you're going through a battle, you're going to win it if you got your eyes on Him. And then think about how you won that battle. Think about, okay, now what can I do in the next battle? So don't let a good battle go to waste. Because they'll benefit you in the next battle. And listen, all this hatred and attacking of Israel then and today, those are spawned by powerful principalities. By not demons, but by fallen entities, by fallen angels, by principalities that rule those nations. And those fallen angels that are over certain areas, and we know that from Daniel. And what do? They produce hatred in men's hearts, and then they provoke them to violence for no reason. But see, there's that one name that is above all names, and He will put an end to those principalities soon. And I thought of, David, I thought about what you told me in Germany, and you said that, and of course we know there's anti-Semitism all over the world, and we know the U.S. is filled with it. And listen, it makes no sense, does it? It makes absolutely no sense to hate these little tiny nation of people that are the size of New Jersey. But like David told me, he said he had one of his friends who hated Jews, and he would tell David that they control the world economy and so forth. And David said he just believed him. David, do you even know any Jews?
No.
Okay, so see, he doesn't know any, and yet his friend told him, so he believed him. And that's how these lies perpetuate. And so, see, Satan is the accuser. See, he whispers lies to us, and he speaks through other people, and then we buy the lie. And then we develop these untruths within ourselves, and then we buy into this stuff. But and listen, without the truth, you will go astray. And I love that in Tim's class that we're going to get into how to study the Bible, because guess what? that's what's going to protect us from being lied to, from buying into the lies. How can you combat lies if you have no truth? And Hosea 4:6 says, God says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. You have to have something to combat the lies. See, only John can catch a fly with his hand. The rest of us have to have a fly swatter. You got to have something to combat. See, but even John said if he had no hands, I don't think he could do it with his foot.
At least it looked funny.
That would be impressive.
Karate chop that fly. So we've got to have some tool to fight the enemy. And really, you have to have some knowledge of that tool to be able to use it. I've been watching that Homestead Rescue, and now I feel like we watched it so much, I feel like, man, I could run a chainsaw. I can use a drill, which I've used a drill, but I've never used a chainsaw. But, I could do one of those excavators, which I have run a Bobcat. But I thought, well, I could do that. I've watched it so much, I can do that, But you have to have some knowledge. Somebody's got to tell you how, this control does this control does that. If I guess you could get in there and figure it out, but sure helps if somebody kind of tells you what to do. So you got to have some knowledge. All right, let's look at verse 18. And the Syrians fled before Israel, and David slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians and 40,000 horsemen, and smote Shobach, the captain of their host, who died there. This is a huge battle. He slew 700 chariots and 40,000 horsemen? And he killed the captain of the host? So here we go, victory. If you let God fight your battles, you will have victory. So the Syrians fled before Israel, and then David slew the men of all these chariots and horsemen, and the captain of the host. See, God always wins. And the captain of the host of the enemy is Satan, and we know that he is going to be eliminated and defeated eventually. So if you just let God fight your battles, you will always win. But guess what? You've got to ask him in. You got to invite him in. You got to surrender before him. You got to say, I can't do it, but I know you can. And you know, we were talking about Jimmy Swaggart, and he just went on to glory, and praise God, he never has to fight his flesh again, like Barbara said. I'll never forget that. As long as I live, what Barbara said. I'll quote that till the day I die, Barbara. That she said, don't mourn for her when she dies, because know that she's never going to have to fight her flesh again. And I feel the same way. So we were talking about it and what he went through. And I believe he was attacked so viciously by Satan to shut him up. And he did not have the knowledge of the truth at the time to be able to fight his flesh. And see, he was still under the same old legalism that we were under. And I don't know if you Baptist people were under that, but us Church of God, man, we were hog-tied and bound in legalism. And I just don't, I tried to think, was there anybody at the time that had the truth?
I don't know. Not in the mainstream, I don't think.
No.
And see, Jimmy Swaggart did not have the truth to fight those severe battles. And like most of us, he thought that Jesus saved him, but after that, he thought he had to overcome himself. And he couldn't. See, that's what Barbara thought. You thought, well, I'm a Christian. I should be able to do this with my dad. He should not be able to trigger me.
Yes.
But your emotions just kept getting trigger. Why? Because you had deep hurt down in there.
And you know, Lee, I was going to say something I've never thought of until now, is our strength could be our biggest weakness when it comes to the devil. Like maybe my strength was loving people unconditionally, but now here it is, my dad. Even though he had deserted us, it still was my dad. And I thought my love should be able to win it, right? Like I could do this. And I just couldn't. It kept backfiring on me every time. And it wasn't like it was horrible, but I was living in anxiety I didn't want to live in. I was living in, you know, when he'd call me and he'd push my buttons and I'd get all upset and then get upset, it just would rattle me, right? I wasn't mean, but it would rattle me. And I just thought about that. What about if your strength is you're a steady man? What if your strength is courage? What if your strength is whatever it is? Like with David, his strength was courage, but he didn't win that battle with Goliath in his courage, right? And I wasn't winning the battle in my strength, what maybe was a strength to me that I thought, right? It was in my strength that he was attacking me the most. And so in that strength, like in your marriage, oh, I can do this. I can be a good husband. Jimmy Swaggart, maybe he thought he was strong, but the devil was coming after him. And I really believe that people were cursing him.
Yes,
and
I do
people
too.
were sending women after him. I really do.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that.
I wouldn't doubt it at all.
And-
And so you think about if that's your strength and somebody's physically doing it to combat your strength, they're going to win if you're not fighting it.
See, and if you're relying on your own strength, then you're
Yes.
relying on yourself to defeat the enemy.
Yes.
Did you think you can win the battle in your own strength? And you can't. And I'm telling you, probably hardly anybody in here has been attacked like I was that night at that Christmas party
Yeah.
at Nancy's house. I had a demonic spirit hit me, and I've never really done drugs, but the only thing I can possibly compare it to, having not even done drugs, but something like cocaine or crack or something, That's how that demonic spirit hit me like a drug. Like you had to have it or you were literally going to die. And you will do anything to get that. But praise God, I knew what it was. It was so crazy. It was so abnormal. It was so unlike anything I had ever experienced that I immediately knew what it was. That it was a demon. That it was a satanic force. And so, if you haven't ever experienced that's the only thing I can compare it to.
What was that? What was that with the guy? How you felt lust for that one guy or no?
Yeah. She invited us over for a Christmas party, and we were all standing in the living room, and I knew her brother had come in town, for Christmas, and that's all I knew. And he walked out of the kitchen into the living room, and I'm telling you what, had I not known what I know, I would have left Jeff, I would have left the boys, I would have run away with him and never come back. That's how powerful that thing was. And I mean, it hit me just like that. As soon as he walked out and said hello, that's what came on me. It was crazy. Just literal insanity. But praise God, I knew what it was. So that's what I felt like Barbara said. Well, we know because some witch came up and told Donnie that she was at some crusade right before, like it was maybe, I don't know, weeks or months before that happened to Jimmy Swaggart. And she told Donnie that she had put a curse on his dad. So if you're trying to fight this stuff in the flesh, you can't do it. Why do drug addicts go to rehab? Because they can't do it on their own.
You're like trying to protect everybody, and you can't do it.
Yeah. And so just like Barbara's trying to, be a good Christian, oh my love, because see, Barbara's naturally very loving. She's just a loving person. So my love should be good enough, but it wasn't. And that's such a great point. So whatever you think your strength is, which we all have talents, we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, but if you're relying on, well, I'm a very loving person, it ain't enough. Her dad crushed her heart and left them. She couldn't overcome that by herself. That hurt was too deep. That drug's got too much of a hold. Satan is too powerful. You got to have something besides yourself. And Joab realized that. And like I think Jimmy Swaggart, like most of us at the time, he thought that he should be able to overcome this sin himself. And very few drug addicts can overcome a drug by themselves. And let's get real. What you men? What's your biggest battle? Lust. Can you overcome that by yourself?
No.
We're going to talk about that in men's and women's meeting this Tuesday and Thursday. We're talking about lust. So stay tuned. So this is the biggest lie from the enemy, I think, that has ever been propagated against man. That you can do it yourself. And Cain thought that he could overcome and bring his own offering to God and be accepted. And what did he find out? He couldn't. And I think that's where the lie started, was right there with Cain. And it's just like I wrote in yesterday's devotion, it's like being sick, realizing you're lost. You're sick and you're like, maybe you got cancer, and you go and get the prescription, and you take one, right? You take one of the pills, and then you expect, well, okay, I took one, I'm healed now. See, that one pill ain't gonna do it. And you got to keep taking that medication until you're healed. And it's the same thing with saving yourself. You can't save yourself. You can't change yourself. You can't stop sinning yourself. And Jimmy Swaggart was trying to overcome his flesh. He was trying to overcome lust in his flesh by his own strength. And he was bringing his own self-righteousness as an offering to God. That's what you were doing, essentially, Barbara. You were bringing your own self-righteousness, saying, well, I should be able to do this because I'm a loving person.
Yes.
And we've all done it. See, he took the first pill and then tried to heal himself thereafter. And then you find out you can't. And Jimmy Swaggart said he realized that the answer, he finally got to a point where he realized, and this went on for years. This went on for, several years after he got caught. And he said he got to a place where he said he realized he couldn't do it. He couldn't overcome his own flesh. And he said, I know the answer has to be in there somewhere, in the Word. And he set out to find out. And that's when he got the revelation of the cross that he's so famous for. And listen, you can't cast a stone. You might have not done that one sin that he did, but let me tell you something. I could peg every one of you with some kind of sin. And like Robbie said, he was looking at all the comments online and just Christians blasting him. You know, what did Jesus say about you who cast the first stone?
You are without sin, cast the first stone.
Yeah, you without sin cast the first stone. Notice nobody cast one.
That's what he said to the Pharisees.
Exactly. So he got this revelation of the cross. And what came to my mind was how the Lord had told Peter. And what did he tell Peter? He said, Satan desires to buffet you, but I have prayed for you. He didn't say, Peter, buck up now. Buck up, Peter. You can do it. You can win this battle. No, he says, I have prayed for you. And I think Jesus will say the same thing to every one of us. Call us by name. As Satan has desired. He's crouching at our door, desiring to buffet us, to take us down, to destroy us. But Jesus has prayed for us. But guess what? We have to accept Jesus. We have to accept his help in the battle. And I thought that's Jesus holding you. Holding you, if you get that picture of the pit, and he's literally holding you from being plummeted into the pit. See, Satan's pushing you, trying to get you in that pit. Your toes are hanging over, but Jesus is there holding you back from being thrown in. And Jimmy Swaggart received a revelation. It's the same revelation, though, that Paul received. It wasn't a new revelation. It was the same one that Paul received. Guess what? I received that same revelation. And it was the same revelation that Jimmy Swaggart got it. It was the same revelation that Paul got. Paul got it in one way. Jimmy Swaggart got it another way. I got it in another way. It's however the Lord opens your eyes to this stuff. And instead of criticizing him and ridiculing him and judging him, we need to be thankful for him. And I didn't get the revelation from him. But I never understood what he was talking about. You know, he would talk about the cross, the cross, the cross. I mean, I understood Jesus died on the cross. I didn't understand what he meant. God had to give it to me in a different way. But still, I'm thankful for him that he got it and that he changed so many lives. And I think Joab got it. I think David got it. Paul got it. And then Jimmy Swaggart got it. And what they got was that we can't do it in our own strength. What they understood was that Jesus set us free from sin, and through and by him is our victory. And if you've ever been on drugs, you know you can't overcome that. If you have ever had a demonic attack like I have, you know that there is nothing in you that can fight against that. And as one person told us that was a Christian, had a family, had a couple daughters, he left his wife, left the church, left his kids, went and became a homosexual, and he told Jeff, we're not sure, but we think he died of AIDS, and he told Jeff, he said, sin took me farther than I ever wanted to go. See, he grew up in the Church of God. Old-timey, legalistic, hair bun wearing, dress wearing, no makeup wearing, no earrings, no jewelry, no nothing, and he became a homosexual. Why? Because they didn't tell him where the victory was. Because they didn't know where the victory was. So it's hard for you to imagine victory when you're in the heat of the battle, is it not? I mean, really, you can't. You just can't even imagine being victorious when you're going through it. And why? Because all you can see is smoke. All you can hear is the bombs. You can't look beyond all that and see the end of the war.
And there's nothing in this world that tells us that victory is surrender.
No. Oh, absolutely not.
Only the Word tells us that.
But when you get in your Bible and you see who God really is. See, I read it as He was my judge and executor. That if I don't shape up, I'm going to be shipped out. That's how I read it. But when you really understand how much He loves you, you really understand that you have been adopted into the family of God, that He wants to be your everything, that He wants to win every battle for you. When you start getting your eyes off of the battle and onto Him, oh, Jesus, I know you're going to win this battle for me. Because I know you defeated Satan on the cross. Then that's when the victory comes. That's when you have opened a spiritual door that allows Jesus and His angels to come and fight that battle for you. And so you've got to shift your focus from the battle to His promises. And you've got to literally be able to look over the battle, look over the smoke, look over the bombs, and look above and see what's coming, see the victory that's yours. And don't you get that from Joab? That he was literally looking over the top of the battle and saying, God, I know that you're going to win this battle. And just look at modern day Israel and the victory that they're having. It's all because God said so. And they don't even believe.
I had an encounter with an Israeli guy once at the mall. He was working for some Jewish company that sells like sea salt, dead sea salt, and different skincare products and all that. And so he was an Israeli guy, and we just got talking about Israel and whatever. And he was bragging about the IDF, because of course he had served in the IDF, and there's nothing wrong with that, being proud of your country, your military, and all that. And he said that nobody could defeat him and everything. And I was like, let me tell you something. I was like, America, we could crush you like a cockroach if we wanted to. I was like, we're 300 million people. This was, several years ago. I was like, we got the largest military in the world. I was like, we could destroy you in the blink of an eye. I said, but the reason why we can't is because God is actually looking out for you. If it weren't for God protecting your nation, I was like, you wouldn't be a nation. And I said, and I told that to his face. And he actually stopped and was like, you believe me? I was like, yes, I believe in God. I was like, you're proof that there is a God. I was like,
Isn't that amazing?
and so I said,
Most of them don't believe in God over there.
I said, if it weren't for the Lord looking out for y'all, I was like, there wouldn't be an Israel. And he actually stopped and kind of listened to me and we talked for 20 minutes.
If you watch Newsmax, you see those Jewish, that Jewish, Christian Jewish organization.
Jews for Jesus?
Yeah, something like that.
It's the Alliance of
Fellowship of Christian and Jews.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they show these, pathetic, old women, and that one woman always says she lived through World War II. That's what it says. She lived through World War II. And then she said something about the God she's hoping in the God she never knew.
Oh.
Like, so she still doesn't know God. And Jeff gets so mad at those commercials, and he was like, when are they going to tell them about Jesus? You know, because they don't talk about Jesus at all. You know, but most of the Jews do not believe in God.
Yeah.
I was seeing something online, and they were talking about all those type of people thought Jesus was a heretic. That's what I was watching.
But you know what? We have to love them because they still brought us Jesus. They brought us. They are His chosen land, His chosen people, and they are going to play a great role in the millennial kingdom. And so we're. You know, I get excited. Of course, I don't know any, but if I do ever meet one, I get excited about it. Man, you're God. Can you imagine being God's chosen people? You are, and we are God's chosen people. We are adopted in. But can you imagine being born into that? Like being born Donald Trump's family? I mean, that's pretty special. But anyway, so just to wrap this up. What has God promised you? See, if He has made you a promise, don't let go. I don't care how bad the battle gets. Don't let go. And fight the devil until you see that word fulfilled, because God cannot lie. And in closing, I was reminded of a good friend of ours. Their daughter went astray. Their daughter went to the Church of God school, Lee University, and became a homosexual. And she lived that lifestyle for, 20 plus years. And her mother told me that God promised her that all 3 of her children were going to be saved. And she said, I am not letting that promise go. And 20 years later, out of the clear blue, no warning, her daughter showed up at their door because she lived in another state and said, I don't want to live this way anymore, and I don't want to go to hell. And how that's probably been.
Basically, she said she just got tired of running from the Lord and knew that she had to either choose to go God's way or choose to go the way of the flesh. And she was like, I'm not going against God anymore.
And I
And
guess
she
it's
just
been like
got
10 years now,
It's probably
right?
10 years.
And so she's still doing good.
And she was married, and they had adopted had a child.
Yes, they had, the partner had the baby. So she had to walk away from her family, essentially. She had to walk away from this child. And it was a sad situation, but she's still living for the Lord today. But my point was, the mother hung on to that promise. And you know what? If the Lord hadn't spoken to you personally about something, that whole book is a promise to you. Find something. Say, Lord, show me what I need to know in this word. Show me a promise that I can stand on. And then guess what? You got to look over the top of the battle. You got to look over the smoke. And you got to look to that promise. And you got to hang on to that promise come hell or high water. And that was the recipe for victory that Joab gave us. So that was a powerful story in 2 Samuel, if you get that. And know where your victory comes from. And it ain't you. And aren't you glad?
Yes.
Because guess what? Man, I'm really good at saying, Lord, I'm just a worm, and I need you to take over. Because guess what? I know what I am. And that's not low self-esteem. That's called reality.
Yes, same.
Amen.
I mean, for myself, I'm not just saying, throw 'em
All right, bless y'all, and join us upstairs and